We have the Trading Training Workshop in We Connect, a program on integrating knowledge, skills, and attitudes within and across curriculum areas. Dated July 18 to 20, 2022, at the office of the school head, Cabalasan Elementary School, Baybay City, Leyte. The SERG project is supported by the Australian government and implemented by DepEd in partnership with Save the Children. The program goal: at the end of the three-year program by December 2023, all five teachers of Cabalasan Elementary School will be able to demonstrate the behaviors of a competent professional teacher and participate in learning and development programs in pursuit of his or her professional development goals. Specifically, develop contextualized or localized lesson plan and learners' activity sheet that demonstrate content knowledge within and across curriculum areas, linking interdisciplinary topics in a selected learning area per grade level based on the most essential learning competencies. Conduct and submit action research reports on developing literacy and numeracy skills of pupils. Use ICT to enhance teaching learning process and demonstrate innovative, team-oriented, service-oriented, self-management behaviors. Rationale. A learning and development needs assessment was conducted in Cabalasan Elementary School for all teachers during the period December 2020 to February 2021 to identify common and unique learning needs of all the teachers as basis for planning, designing, and delivering learning interventions that are data-driven, needs-based, and addressing the workplace development objective of improving learner performance. Findings show that most of the common needs are in Domain 1, 3, and 4, while unique needs are in Domain 2 and 5. Having been thoroughly analyzed by the PMT in its strategic importance, urgency, magnitude, and feasibility, the topmost priority of the school is identified as Strand 1.1, content knowledge and its application within and across curriculum areas. The terminal objective. At the end of the training workshop, all K-Stage 1 and K-Stage 2 teachers shall develop and present a contextualized or localized weekly lesson plan or lesson plan itself and learners' activity sheets that demonstrate content knowledge within and across curriculum areas, linking interdisciplinary topics in a selected learning area per grade level, given the most essential learning competencies and the steps for preparing a lesson plan. Enabling objectives. Explain the importance of lesson planning, plus and integrating lessons within and across subject areas. Identify the learning objectives of a lesson. Plan to sequence the lesson in an engaging and meaningful manner. Plan the specific learning activities. Plan to assess student understanding. Create a realistic timeline. Plan for a lesson closure. Write down the lesson in a lesson plan format. For day 1, we have sessions 1 to 4 plus workshop number 1. It was prepared and facilitated by Hope Marie Lourdes G. Salas, Master Teacher 1, School Search Focal or L&D Coordinator of Cabalasan Elementary School. Session 1 is all about importance of lesson planning, activity sheets, and integrating lessons within and across subject area. Sessions 2A and 2B is all about identifying learning objectives. Session 3 focused on planning to sequence the lesson. And session 4, we have planning specific learning with a workshop. Make a simple sample learning activity sheets showing integration of content across curriculum areas. And that is good for 2 hours. And we have now the references. For day 2, we have sessions 5 to 7 plus workshop number 2. It was prepared and facilitated by Margie C. Corate, School PMT Chair on Resource Package Development of Cabalasan Elementary School. Session 5 is all about planning to assess student understanding. Session 6 is all about creating realistic timeline. Session 7, planning for lesson closure with workshop number 2, make a lesson plan integrating topics in the most appropriate strategies, activities, tasks, questions to ensure learners' mastery of the content in the teacher's subject area. That is good for 2 hours. With the references for day 2. Day 3, we have the instructions and preliminaries, presentation and feedback, sharing and discussion, making of work action plan, and it was facilitated by Nora T. Omega, School Head or PDC Chair of Cabalasan Elementary School. We have the instructions and preliminaries on the quality standard of lesson plan and learning activity sheet. Before it was presented, the discussion with regards to the updates in the development of contextualized learning resources and guidelines in evaluating learning resources were presented. Then we have presentation and feedback, sharing and discussion, making work action plan, and of course, the references for day 3. We have the facilitators and participants during the training workshop. Day 1, July 18, 2022, facilitated by Hope Marie Lourdes G. Salas. Training sessions during the first day were facilitated by the School SERG Focal or L&D Coordinator in the person of Hope Marie Lourdes G. Salas. The discussion focused on the alignment of lesson objectives to the procedure of the lesson. Herein, what will be the answer? Is it a happy face or a sad face lollipop? Answering the activity for the sessions in day 1. Day 2, July 19, 2022, facilitated by Margie C. Corate. The training sessions during the second day were facilitated by the School PMD Chair for Resource Package Development in the person of Margie C. Corate. How many votes can you make in 15 minutes? The timer starts now, and this is an activity during the session in day 2. Day 3, July 20, 2022, facilitated by Nora T. Omega. The training sessions during the third day were facilitated by School Head or PDC Chair, Nora T. Omega. The lecture focused on the evaluation of contextualized lesson plan and logs, supplies and materials, including meals and snacks. These are the training booklets for the participants and facilitators. These are the remaining supplies and materials for the training workshop. Most of the reams of papers were already used to print the training booklets. Meals and snacks were served during the 3-day training workshop in WeConnect. Awarding of certificates. Certificates were given to the participants, facilitators, and the different working committees. We have the TWAME, post-evaluation result, based on end of program evaluation, with the activity title, 3-day training workshop in WeConnect, a program on integrating knowledge, skills, and attitudes within and across curriculum areas. Date, July 18 to 20, 2022. The respondent type, trainee, trainer, and program manager. Number of respondents, 6. 1 male and 5 female. Equivalent rating scale. 5 may strongly agree, 4 agree, 3 disagree, 2 strongly disagree, and 1 with no response. With the formula, average equals number of responses divided by total number of items divided by total number of respondents times the equivalent rating scale. For the program management, the training program was delivered as planned. 5 responses for strongly agree, 1 for agree, 0 for disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. The training program was managed efficiently. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. The training program was well structured. 5 responses for strongly agree, 1 for agree, 0 for disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. For the program management, the highest average is on strongly agree with an average of 4.444. For the attainment of objectives, the program objectives were clearly presented. The training program was delivered as planned. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. The program and session objectives were attained. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. For the attainment of objectives, the highest average is on strongly agree with an average of 5.000. For delivery of content, program content was appropriate to trainees' roles and responsibilities. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. Content delivered was based on authoritative and reliable sources. 5 responses for strongly agree, 1 for agree, 0 for disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. The session activities were effective in generating learning. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. Adult learning methodologies were used effectively. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. Management of learning was effectively structured. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. Trainees demonstrated a clear understanding of the content delivered. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. For delivery content, the highest average is on strongly agree with an average of 4.861. For the provision of support materials, the support materials provided were appropriate to trainees' needs. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. Support materials were adequate and were given on time. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. For the provision of support materials, the highest average is on strongly agree with an average of 5.000. Program Management Team. Program Management Team members were coaches. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. Program Management Team was efficient. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. Program Management Team was responsive to the needs of trainees. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. For the Program Management Team, the highest average is on strongly agree with an average of 5.000. For venue and accommodation, the venue was well lighted. 5 responses for strongly agree, 1 for agree, 0 for disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. The venue was well ventilated. 5 responses for strongly agree, 1 for agree, 0 for disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. The venue was comfortable with enough space for program activities. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. The venue had sanitary and hygienic conditions with adequate comfort rooms. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. Meals were nutritious and enough in quantity and quality. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. Meals were generally well prepared and tasty. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. The accommodation was comfortable with sanitary and hygienic conditions. 6 responses for strongly agree, 0 for agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and no response. For venue and accommodation, the highest average is on strongly agree with an average of 4.762. For the question, what do you consider your most significant learning from the program? There are 6 responses. And to summarize, the most significant learning from the program considered integrating, contextualizing, and aligning the lessons and assessment to better suit the learner's needs and interests. With the instruction, briefly describe what you have learned and how it will help you with your work. There are 6 responses. As a summary, the learning of the different participants or trainers focused more on learning how to integrate lessons from the objectives to procedures down to assessment in the teaching learning process. For the question, what changes would you suggest to improve similar programs in the future? Generally, no suggestions noted to improve similar programs in the future. And lastly, what further comments do you have? There are 2 comments identified. And as a summary, we have curriculum instruction with the provision of learning resources must be the topmost priority in all teachers' professional development to improve teaching learning process. Kwame report was prepared by Francisco S. Salas Jr., the PMT Chair for Kwame, Lira N. Cabardo, PMT Chair for Program Delivery, and Hope Marilourdes G. Salas, School Search Focal. Noted, Nora T. Omega, School Head. To DFAT, Save the Children Philippines, and SERG, we would like to express our warmest gratitude for choosing our schools to be piloted in the L&D system. Daghan kaayong salamat!